Okay, hi everybody. Laura here from Unique in the Creek. And today we are going to resurrect the zinnia flower. The zinnia petal I did, gosh, when I first started using the boards, and I haven't done one since. So it's been probably early 2018. And then I'm thinking about it, and I'm wanting to reshoot a lot of my old ones, and I think you guys will really like this petal. And once we put it together, now on the old boards, when I did it with the old wooden boards, it's a lot more difficult than it is the way we have the holes positioned now. So I'm going to be using the large board. I'm also going to be using this beautiful color turquoise fabric mesh. I love fabric mesh. Fabric mesh makes such bright, bold, colored flowers, and it's nice to work with, especially with this petal. You want to be able to have it like poofy, like it's like a bubble, but you can shape it really well. So a fabric mesh or a poly jute works just great. I have a few centers, but the center I do want to finish the flower off with is I'm going to just use this yellow 6-inch burlap that you can get at any of your hobby stores. I'm going to do turquoise and yellow. I'm getting away from the pinks. I also have this gorgeous sparkly center I'm going to try in the middle. And I also have the simple felt flower that you can make. I've done quite a few tutorials on this one. It's always a good go-to. But if you can get yellow burlap, I think it's going to look fabulous, these two colors. And I didn't have any like green that I wanted to do the leaves with, but I did have this green poly burlap. So again, we are going to mix up. I'm going to do it. I'm mixing up 3 different supplies. I'm using poly burlap, I'm using a fabric mesh, and I'm using real burlap. What? Blowing everybody's mind here. The tools you're going to need, I got my zip tie gun. However, you can just use little wire nippers. If you bought in one of our kits, you'll have one of these hanging around. You can use wire snippers, like the wire side cutters. You can even use scissors. Just don't use your good ribbon scissors because it'll dull it. I'm going to be using these needle nose pliers sometimes because I got cuts on my hands and they hurt. So pulling the zip ties, I have these needle nose pliers to help me. I got a sharp pair of scissors. I don't know if I'll probably use this. No, I probably won't even use scissors, but I always have them in case. You want your rotary cutter, nice sharp blade. You're going to need zip ties. I use 18-pound zip ties. These ones are 6 inches long. I wouldn't use any smaller than 6 inches. However, lots of people do. I can't fool around with that. I like to have lots of room. I have clear little elastic bands because I will show you how you can pre-make petals and it'll make your flower making go a lot faster. Okay, and of course we have the large board. So you can do this on the small board. You can do this petal method on pretty much any board you want. You know, the cross, the wing, the ring, whatever you want. It's a fun petal. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to preload my board. Now I started preloading already. I preloaded row 2 and row 3, only the normal holes on row 3. There is one hole between the 2 sets of holes, and this hole is for people to use shared holes. This flower, you don't need, if you're using a good mesh, you don't need to put extra petals in here. So I'm just loading the normal holes on row 3. Then we're loading row 4. Okay, and to load the board, you take your zip tie, you can go down one hole, up the other, and you want to make sure that the flat part of your zip tie is going towards the tail or going towards the inside of the two holes. And that makes sure that the tail is going to go through the zip tie head and you'll hear you want to hear that zipping sound. And when you pull it, it's going to be locked. If you go in backwards, so if you go down and up and your zip ties backwards and you're not paying attention, if you're having problems putting it in, look down, because 99% of the time you're going in the wrong way. You just flip it around, and so that the flat part and the tail are meeting, and there you go. Okay, so some other people, they'll flip the board over and then just put their zip ties in like this and load them like this, and then flip the board over and then do them all up. You get a habit of the way you load them. So then you turn it over and then you just put them together. So however you want to do it, you need to preload rows 2, 3, and 4 with your zip ties. Okay? Easy, pretty easy. You can even get your kids to do it, or your husband, or your friend. So we're going to put this aside for now because our board is loaded. And now I'm going to open, and we're going to cut this beautiful turquoise mesh. Again, this is a fabric mesh. We have fabric mesh on our website, uniqueinthecreek.com. However, we're getting a big load in next week, or this week, next week. Well, it's coming in this week. It will be loaded next week. So we look for lots of colors. This stuff is so beautiful to use. Look at the color on this. So there is a big difference when you're using like a fabric mesh compared to, say, a value mesh. So this, for instance, is a value mesh. See how you can see my hand through it? Not so much with your fabric mesh, okay? You can do this flower with any mesh. If you do have a value mesh, you will have to double it, okay? You can use a wide strip mesh foil, okay? Or you could even use, it would look really beautiful with a deluxe foil deco mesh like this one, where it's all foil. So if you want a sparkly zinnia, I would go for the deluxe mesh or the wide foil mesh. If you want a saturated color, so you want something really vibrant, go with your fabric mesh. You can do this with a poly burlap. It works actually really nice with a poly burlap. Here's a green one I did. Okay, so you get the nice color. It has nice form and everything. The only thing with poly burlap is it's a little bit more expensive. So if you have a lot of poly burlap on hand, go ahead and use it because it will make a stunning flower. If you're looking for a more economical way to make your flower, I would choose the fabric mesh. And then if you're looking for even less of an economical way, use a wide foil mesh. Okay. Now we are not going to see the sides of these petals, so we do not have to heat seal this mesh. So even with poly burlap, you don't have to heat seal it. However, with poly burlap, it almost falls apart if you blow on it, really. So if you don't want to fool around with all kinds of strings and everything, you may want to heat seal your poly burlap, okay? Because if you don't, you're going to have strings hanging all over the place and stuff, and it'll probably take more time to cut the strings off than to actually heat seal or wood burn the mesh. Okay, that's just a little tidbit with the poly burlap. Fabric mesh, however, I love, love, love. And it's so soft and you can do anything with it. It's beautiful. So I am going to be cutting this fabric mesh into 9-inch pieces. Why 9-inch? To make sure I have enough with one roll to make the whole flower. Okay, so we're not quite using a whole roll of mesh. However, sometimes the manufacturer shortens us the mesh, and we need 32 pieces. If you're using a different mesh than fabric mesh, or you're using a smaller center than the burlap I'm going to be using, you're going to need 36 pieces. So if you do at 9 inches, you will have enough for 36 pieces. Okay. You won't be able, you can't tell if you don't cut it at 10 inches because you don't need a complete perfect square. All right, so I'm going to start cutting mine, and I'm just using my cutting mat and my rotary cutter, and 9 inches. I have to do my math here, and my mat happens to be 36, 9, 18, 27. Okay, so I can cut 4 pieces at once. And we'll just pile them on. It doesn't have to be perfect. This petal is very forgiving, and it's underrated. This petal is, when I first did it, I did a couple. I did a red one and I did a peach colored one, and I absolutely loved it, and I don't know why I didn't do it again. So I'm bringing it back into action. So if you don't have a cutting mat, you can get a piece of cardboard and cut it at 9 inches and put it in your mesh and flip it and cut it with some scissors and get your 9-inch pieces. Or you use your measure buddy, bring the measure buddy out to 9 inches, put it in your mesh and flip it a few times, probably about 4 or 5 times, and then slide the scissors in up the ends, and you can cut quite a few pieces at the same time. This one I think I gypped a little bit, probably. We'll just put this little tiny one to the side. If you're watching this live, I am not reading comments, as this is going to be turned into a tutorial, but I thought it would be fun if my friends on YouTube, or YouTube and Facebook right now, could actually see what I'm doing without it getting sped up and everything, because it will, nobody wants to sit and watch somebody cutting mesh. But you got to do it to speed up your videos. Holy moly. Some pieces are getting gypped off, but we'll make it work. I'm not a perfectionist. I do not have OCD. I do not have time to have OCD. Now, you can heat seal fabric mesh if you want. So if you're going to be using it for a sunflower or something, you most definitely can heat seal it. And you can wood burn it very easily. Just watch. There's a lot of fabric in, especially this one. This is a check one. So the check, there's 2 different kinds. There's check and stripe. The check one has quite a bit more fabric in it because it's got going down and crosswise. A stripe has only the fabric or the jute or whatever it is they put in there going downwards. So you do get a better color saturation with a fabric check mesh. It's a few cents more than the stripe one, but that's why it is more, because you do get a better quality, a little bit better quality mesh with the check. And it doesn't mean it's checkered, it just means it's checked with the jute. Almost done. It's the worst thing I hate is cutting mesh. Now, if only my kids would just do it for me, I'd have it made. I think I actually got the exact amount of mesh, the whole 10 yards. Wow. That doesn't happen much. All right, we got it all done. Big old pile of fabric mesh. This color is so pretty. See, I'm trying, this year is the year of the blue. Last year I did everything in pink. This year I'm trying to do things in blue. Okay, so this inner part is the big pain in the tuchus because you can see how curled it is. So if you don't want your mesh, mesh is easier to work with when it's a little bit flatter. So if you're cutting mesh and you're not using it right away, flatten it out and maybe put a cookie sheet over top of it and then something heavy on the cookie sheet and have your mesh underneath the cookie sheet and leave it overnight or until you need to use it. And it flattens it out a little bit more and it's quite a bit more helpful than it curling up like this. Just a little tidbit there. Okay, so let's make the petal. This one is a fun petal. I love this petal. It looks like a bubble. It reminds me of a bubble. And when I first made it, I scoured the internet because I was playing with mesh, like I always do. And I came up with this petal and I was like, what does this look like? And then I was going through flowers and I came across the zinnia. And the zinnia has these poofy, bubbly looking petals. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll call it the zinnia. So that's the only reason it's called the zinnia petal, because that's kind of what it reminded me of. All right, so we got our 9 by 10 inch piece. Curl up, put it into a diamond right in front of you. What you're going to do is you're going to take the bottom corner and you're going to put it between your thumb and your hand here, just like that. Okay, you're going to take the top corner and bring that right down to meet the bottom corner. Again, you're going to put your thumb over top. Then you're going to take the side corners, and what you're going to do with the side corner is you're going to take the side corner, bring it down to meet the top and bottom corner, and you're going to wrap it like that around. You're going to take this one, bring it to the corner, and wrap it around. And then it gives you, so you'll see that the two sides are kind of indented. And then the petal itself is very poofy, 3D, and it looks like a big bubble. Okay, so I'm just going to scrunch that a little bit better. There we go. Isn't that cool? So it's like a 3D flower. See, I do need my scissors. Let's cut this little thing off. All right, and then you're going to take your board, and we will start from the outside, so row 2 in. Now, I do have green leaves cut. I'm going to put the green leaves on at the end so they don't get in the way and get all frayed with my arm and everything getting in the way. Okay, I think I'm going to put this side up. Okay, so there's our bubble. And you can form it however you want. If you scrunch it a little bit higher up, it takes more of a square shape. You're going to take the tail and you're just going to put it right into your zip tie. And a good rule of thumb is once the tip hits row 2, the line on row 2, zip your zip tie up. There we go. That's the first petal. Isn't it cute? So the whole thing is going to be like that except for the center. So let's do it again. And now you can see why I did 9 by 10 because you really can't even tell, but we're going to make sure we have enough mesh with one roll. So curl up, put it into a diamond shape, top corner, to the bottom corner. Take your hand and put your thumb over top. Take your corner, bring it down. And once you have it down there, you're going to wrap it around. And then you're going to take the other side and do the same thing. Bring it down and wrap it around. And then you're going to form. So I kind of just press it down on the table so I can form my petal so it's the same size and same shape as the other ones. Okay, almost kind of looks like a tulip. Put your tail in to the next line and pull your zip ties. And this is where I need my needle nose because my hands are dry because I'm playing with mesh all the time. Okay, now what you want to do with the two petals side by side, you're going to take one, see how we have that little pocket here? One, they're going to go in between each other, so they're tucked in. So one is in one pocket and the neighboring one is in the other pocket, so they're linked to each other. Okay? So you don't want them on top of each other, we want them linked. And you want to make sure that they're pretty much the same size. Pretty easy, eh? Okay, let's do it again. We have quite a few of these. Now, I'm going to show you how you can pre-make your petals. And I'm a big fan of these little elastic bands from the Dollar Tree. You get them in the hair section. They're like $5 for $1. And I like to pre-make my petals. I didn't pre-make any because you've seen me cut my mesh. But I usually do pre-make them and I'll put them in a grocery bag or whatever. To pre-make it, you can just do your petal the same. So in the diamond shape, top to the bottom. Okay. Put your thumb over. Take your corner, your right corner. Now my rule of thumb is my tattoo is always my right hand. The other corner is coming down and it's wrapped around. Okay, so this is the front part. And there's strings here, so if you use poly burlap, it's going to be even worse if you don't heat seal it. Okay, and then I'm just going to flatten it down the front. Make sure the petal is about the same. Let's see what side's better. This one's better. And then you can take one of these little bitty elastics, rubber bands or whatever you call it, and just put it around the tail. This is much easier than you can really mold your petal to the right shape. So every petal can be exactly the same if you put your elastics on. Okay, and we'll just stick this in. And again, the neighboring one is going inside the pocket of the other one. Tail to the next line and pull it tight. Now, we're not going to worry about, I know you can see some frays and stuff here. When we make our unique Creek flowers, they all overlap each other, so you won't see, because this next row is going to overlap and you won't see this bottom part. So this petal is pretty much done all up in the air in your hand. Okay. Now you can make it even more rounded. You can play with it. I kind of like it square because it sits nicely in the neighboring petal. So you can see a little dip in it. It gives it a nice little character. Stick it in. Put the two neighboring. There we go. So they link up. And look how pretty that is. This color is absolutely gorgeous. That's why I wanted to do it with fabric mesh, because fabric mesh does work really well for this petal. It's so pliable. Oh, now we're getting into the curlies. I should have grabbed one of these. More of the inside. Now, if you do have problems with this petal, it is a little bit easier if you do have a perfect square of 10 by 10. So I would cut a 9-inch piece, play with it, and see if you can get the petal made with the 9-inch piece before you cut it all into 9 inches. Because you may decide, oh, it's a little hard for me. I can't get the perfect petal to look so they look all the same. Then try a 10-inch piece and you may be able to get it looking a little better for you. But try that first before you cut your whole roll, okay? But then again, we're making flowers, people. Flowers are not perfect. And neither are we. We're crafters. Well, I'm not perfect. I am far from perfect. But as you get going, you get the hang of it. Stick it in. We'll link the two. So one goes over top of the other. One is, the bottom part is going inside this one, and the top part is going over top of its neighbor. This side looks better. I always check which side looks better. One side may have more frays than the other. But again, if you don't like to work with the mesh when it has frays, just heat seal it. Even though you can see, once you start it, you can't see any of the frays. But I know a special Unique in the Creek matriarch that heat seals or wood burns all her mesh, and that's her prerogative. So keep an eye to make sure that all your petals are pretty much the same size. I'm doing more of a square. You can see I have a dip going in mine here. But what the nice thing with fabric mesh, it's kind of got some elasticity to it. So you can actually stretch it out and make them all the same size. But we'll fuss with that later. Once you're done row 2, the other rows go a little faster. Row 2 has 16 petals. So row 2 you need 16, row 3 you need 8, row 4 you need 8. And if you're doing like a half ball center and it's like 5 inches, you may have to do row 5, which is 4 pieces. I'm going to be doing a burlap center for this one, and because I'm doing a burlap center, I won't have to use row 5 with any petals. So if you want to see one of these finished, type in zinnia and you'll see the beautiful, I made it, like I said, in 2018. It was red fabric mesh with a yellow center. It was so pretty. It was one of my favorite flowers, and I don't know why I didn't do it again till now. That's like the daffodil. You know what, I guess nobody really knew I did a daffodil until I redid it again. Meanwhile, I did one in like 2018. We're not worrying about where the factory or serged edges are. It doesn't really matter with this petal. Oh, that one's going to give me a hard time. So you want the two little puckers in there. Puckers, I said. Puckers. Now the reason I do it up in the air is because if we kind of did it flat on a flat surface, you won't get that bubble effect. So once you get the bubble, then you can fix the tail and form it, like I said. Three more. Make sure we're still linking. Looks better. It seems like the back side where you wrap, or the last one you wrap around, seems to be a nicer shape when you finish the petal, I'm finding. This is pretty cool. And there's so many pretty meshes out there now. When I first did this in 2018, they didn't have even a quarter of the mesh that they have now. When I was doing this tutorial, 21 inch was the big, everybody used 21 inch for everything. That was the wreathing thing. And then we started using 10 inch a lot. I never really used 21 inch for anything. So a rose. All right, so we're all linked. Everything's all linked, and we're done our last row, our last petal, I mean. Now we're going to go around and you're going to clip off the tails of the zip tie. So you can use your wire nippers. If you have a zip tie gun, these really save your hands. You just slide. There's a little guide in there with some teeth. Slide the zip tie and you pull. And what this does is it pulls and cuts your zip tie at the same time. So it tightens it and pulls it and saves your hands. If you do like this one, I've had for over 2 years. I do have a link on Lori's Favorite Tools on uniqueinthecreek.com on Amazon for this, and I think they're like $14. And this one's the metal one. You want to get the metal one, as the plastic ones break easy. Or you can just use your scissors. Just like I said, have old scissors if you're going to cut zip tie tails with them. All right, we're ready for the next row. Now this should go a little bit faster because we only have 8. So that's 8 on row 3. And you'll be able to start seeing how it overlaps. But let's see the side view. Isn't that cool? It's almost like a chain link. A 3D chain link. I absolutely love it. I don't know why I haven't made more of these. Seriously. Okay, we're going to continue with the exact same petal. So we have 16 more of these to make, which isn't so bad because we just did 16. So again, you want to have your, sorry for the dogs, Lolly must be home from school. You want to have your petals the same as these ones. And again, you're going to put your petal in the tail. And I would go till your tail hits to about row 5, because the row 3 is a little closer in diameter than row 2 and 3. But see how it goes in between, kind of in, this one goes in between these two that are on row 2. Now, if you do get confused with all the zip ties, you can put your zip ties in row by row. Some people get a little confused when there's too many zip ties. Just feel free to load row 2, and then when you finish row 2, load row 3. It's just a suggestion on loading the board. This is just how I do it. But once you get the hang of these, you kind of figure out your own way to do these. Oh, wrong one. Going over here, Laura. Now these don't link so much as row 2 because they're a little farther apart. But then you'll see when we load row 3, you'll have a petal that'll be in between these two. Put your tail in. Like I said, for row 3, I'm doing it till about it hits row 5, just for my guessing. Well, I guess it's just past row 4. However you do it, just do it the same. So they all look cohesive. Yeah, see the backside, when you wrap the last one, the backside, it kind of looks a little better and a little more finished because the mesh is going over compared to that side. So I'm going to do a few with my rubber bands. We'll get some prepared. It's a little easier So I usually do the right first, so it would be the left is the last. So the left, the front, when you do the left, that would be the front. It seems to be just a little bit neater. And again, if you're watching my tutorials, my right hand is always my tattoo. And no, I didn't have my tattooed, so you guys can tell which my right and left hand. These strings are a pain in the butt. So nice, the fabric mesh. It doesn't hurt your hands. You can mold it. How many do I need here? 1, 2, 3. Oh, I only need 4 to finish that row. So we're ready to go. And you don't want to knock all your rubber bands over, especially on the floor. Done that. Okay, so now we can just pop them in. I can't tell you how much I'm loving this flower and how fun it looks. I don't know if you guys can actually see that on the screen, but it is super cool. There's still a little bit of linking, so you can still see how easy it is when you actually cremate the petals. Okay, let's get these zip tails out of the way. Now, if you want it even fuller on that row, you can go ahead and put more petals if you want. But I find it, when it's finished, the more petals, it looks too squished. So that is a total up to you call. You'll be able to see when mine's done. See how I pulled that out? I can make all. That's why I love fabric mesh. It's so forgiving. All right, we're going to go continue on. This is our last row. Pretty cool. Look at that side view. Okay, I have one made here, so we are on our last row, and you can see that this one will go in between these two. So we're filling her up. Oh, 7 more petals. How many of you have done that big sigh? It's like, oh, 10 more petals. But the end result is always so worth it. Now the higher up, that's another thing I wanted to point out. The higher up you use your petal, the smaller it will be, but the tighter it will be. Do you see that? So if you do it really tight and high up, you may need more petals than I'm using. Mine's pretty poofy, and that's just the way I like it. Again, play around with the mesh. Use some scrap mesh before you start playing with expensive stuff. Figure out what you want to do first, and then, like I said, play around with a 9-inch and a 10-inch. Decide which you prefer for that. See, there's the poly burlap. I did heat seal this poly burlap, so there's no strings, and it too makes a really, really nice petal. We're going to be using this on the outside for the petals for the green. But I didn't want to, what's that small piece? I didn't want my green sticking out yet until I'm ready to use it, so it doesn't get all tattered. Where am I? Over here. And that's the nice thing with the Unique Creek boards too. It's you can stop, go, start. You can leave this for weeks, come back to it, and you'll still know where you started and stopped, or where you have to continue. How did I just do that? I wonkied that one up. Let's just clip that one out. I don't know what I did to that one. That's better. I think I twisted it while I was putting it in. So again, we're tucking in because they're going in between. The tie tails out of the way so it doesn't get caught on my mesh. All right, 4 more. 4 more. So I guess there is a lot of mesh left over. So if you're not doing row 5 and you're going to end up doing a burlap center like I'm going to show you right now, you could easily cut your pieces at 10 by 10. You'll have quite a bit. I have quite a bit left over still. And I'm always worried that I'm going to get into the middle of a project and not have enough, and I only had 1 roll of this. So it's not like I even had another roll to open. if I needed more. I think I should have just called this the bubble flower. It's a big bubble. Or the bubba. Hey, I could have named the flower after my son. The bubba flower. And I don't know where the nickname Bubba came from. We just kind of, and because he's not fat, just kind of started calling him Bubba after I watched Forrest Gump from Bubba Gump Shrimp. I know I'm weird, but that's where Bubba came from. Because I did call him Bubba Gump Shrimp when he was little, and then shortened it to Bubba Gump, and then it just came to Bubba. Too much, I know, TMI. One more petal. We did it. Now again, like I said, if you're not going to do, although I have a few other centers, we'll see if you would need to use row 5 with the other centers. I do know the burlap one I'm going to do. Holy moly. I think this frayed all by itself while it was just sitting there. Seriously. That is a terrible piece. I literally think it's fraying just being in the air. Although we're getting really, this is the center part of the roll. But it's okay once you get your petal done. So linking, that's still the two, the neighboring ones. So you tuck one in, so they link together. I want this one way back there. This one goes in here. This one goes in here. Let's get rid of this one. Link her up. So one is going on the inside and one is going behind. Same with all the way around. So it's linking it. Okay. Ooh, she's full. This one's wonky. Here's the side view. It's different. It is different. Okay. So I do have a couple centers here that are pre-made. I pre-made. I am going to use burlap in the center. It is the easiest center you can do. You don't need anything else except the burlap and the board. But I would just want to show you. This is a half 5-inch styrofoam ball. This is the glitter rope I use, which I don't have any in stock right at the moment. So you can tuck that in. So your center, and then you would put your petals going around it. And that's pretty. I wouldn't use silver. I would probably use something bright. This is just one of those felt centers that you can do. I would make it bigger. This is just happens to be one I had on hand. I would put it on a round styrofoam disc from like the Dollar Tree, make it a little bit bigger, and then fit it in like that. But I'm going to be using burlap. Okay, so I'm going to be using the burlap right on the board. You only need the burlap and some zip ties. I'm just going to trim away a little bit of these tails in there just so I can see what I'm doing. See my holes. Because we are going to be using row 5. Okay. We can see the holes now. You can see the holes now? Okay, so I am just going to load them one at a time, I think. I'm going to be using, I'll flip this over. There's our back, nice and neat. I'm going to be using just the normal 4 holes on row 5. Now, if you were using a center ball, you could put your pipe cleaners right through the middle here, in these 2 holes. Pull it down, twist it, and then put the pipe cleaners back in, and you'll have a nice clean back still. So I'm just going to use one zip tie for right now so I don't get it all confused in there. And I'm going to take my burlap. So this is just a burlap garland. You can get them, I think this one came from Hobby Lobby. They have all different kinds now on the market. I'm going to cut this at 16 inches. I'm just gonna, where's my rotary cutter? Now you can use scissors as well. I'm just going to clean up this edge. Okay, I'm going to cut 4 pieces at 16 inches. Now, you can make it longer, and that will give you a fuller center. I don't want too full of a center. I want it kind of loose looking, so I'm just doing 4 pieces at 16 inch. Now, if you don't have a cutting mat, you can use your measure buddy and just wrap around 4 times and cut on the ends with your scissors. There we go. Okay. You're going to put your 16-inch piece that you just cut in front of you. Strings all over. And I'm going to scrunch this from the top, or from the bottom right to the top, right up the middle, with the cut end facing downwards. So when I pinch it, I'm pinching it, and you can see that the cut end is facing down. I'm also going to finish it with the end facing down. So you're just going to pleat it like an accordion. Now you're going to want to do this on a smooth surface, because if you're doing it on a tablecloth, you're going to pinch the tablecloth with you. And then the end, you want to just make sure the end is finished down with it down. So this is what you have. It's like a kind of a ruffle bow tie thing. But you can see that my cut ends are facing downwards. I don't want to see these little fray things. So I'm going to now take this piece, and I'm going to put the middle right in between the zip tie. So take your middle, put it down. Now I did not close the zip tie. And you're going to wrap your zip tie right around the burlap. Okay, don't tighten it yet, because just tighten it till it hits the burlap, and that way you can make sure you can move it around and make sure that both pieces in the zip tie are even. And then once you know that, pull her tight. Okay, there's one. And now we're going to go to the next one and do the exact same. So put your zip tie down. Keep it open. Get your 16-inch piece. Put it in front of you. Again, pinch so that the cut edge is down, and just keep pleating and pinching. Just drag it with your thumb, and you grab it with your forefingers and drag. Finish your ruffle with it downwards. Okay, you're going to take the center where you're holding, and again, there's my zip tie, putting the center right in the middle of that zip tie. Move these guys out of the way. Do the zip tie up until it hits the burlap, so not too tight yet, just like that. And you want to make sure it's, go down and make sure it's, both sides are pretty much even. Once it's even, and you can pull. Where's my needle? Those pliers, they help me pull. There we go. And then cut. So we're making our center right on the board. You don't need any extra, anything extra, no foam balls or anything like that. So we're going to go here again. This is our third piece. Scrunch. And you can do this method for any flower. The burlap flowers make a nice ruffly flower. And if, like I said, if you want it fuller, just cut your burlap pieces a little longer. I cut mine at 16. And you can also use shared holes to make it fuller as well. And shared holes are the in-between holes. So you would have a zip tie in there already, and you would share the hole. Alrighty, that is good. And it looks full, but we still have one more piece. Right there. Okay, so we used 32 pieces of this fabric mesh, and we used 4 16-inch pieces of the burlap. All right, dig in. Push your burlap aside so you can see your zip tie. Put the middle right down on the zip tie. Now she's tight here now. This is the last thing, so, and I'm squishing all my petals, but they're fixable. Make sure it's even. Okay, once it's even, pull it tight. And cut the zip tie tail off. There we go. We have a great looking center, and now you can pull them all, make sure it's all pulled up so you can see all the rufflies in there. So some are stuck down there. And if you want it fuller than this, you just add, instead of 16 inches, you can do 20 inches. Cut some of these little pieces off here. You just want to make sure all your ruffles are facing upwards and are not stuck underneath. Okay, and now we're going to just make sure these petals, actually I didn't squish them as bad as I thought. And with fabric mesh, look how nice you can just pull it. Isn't that pretty? What is going on with this piece over here? It's stuck. There we go. That's why I said make sure you pull all your burlap up so it's not stuck underneath, because you want to see all these ruffles. Wow, that is so pretty. Okay, and then you can add green leaves if you want. Now, I'm not one to add green leaves all the way around. I just like to add a few. I think it sometimes, some of the flowers don't need green leaves, but some do, and it just gives that pop of color. Now, you can make a leaf just like you did with the petal. I'll just tuck this in there so you guys can see what it looks like. And this is just poly burlap. So this is like a third type of supply here. So we got burlap, fabric mesh, and then poly burlap. So you can make a few green ones going around like that. And all you would do to attach that type of petal is make your zip tie from this hole. So row 1 usually is when we do the flowers. It's usually for the green leaves. And you guys can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to put the tail of this in the zip tie on the board, on the front side of the board. Okay, and then pull this zip tie tight. Okay, then when I flip it over, you see the green. So you can do it that way. You can do it any way you want, any kind of petal. But we'll just do the normal sunflower petal leaf for this flower. Okay, so we're going to flip it over. I'm going to find my hanging holes. There's my hanging holes here. So I'm just going to put a zip tie in. You can use wire, you can use twine, you can use ribbon, whatever you want to make a hanger. Lots of people use wire. I just use a zip tie because they're always handy. And I like to put my petals usually at the 10 o'clock and 5 o'clock. So I do it diagonal because all the holes each have a diagonal hole. So I'm going to put it here and I'm going to put it here. Okay? What I'm going to do, and I'm going to do this upside down so you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to put my zip tie in. Now the head of the zip tie is facing up towards the ceiling and I'm going through the front just like that. Okay, I'm going to take, I got poly burlap here. I did heat seal these. I don't know how many pieces I cut. I think I cut 6. I'm going to take this and with the curl down. So this is curl up, which how we were making these. But this we're going to use curl down in a diamond shape. And I'm just going to scrunch from corner to corner, dragging my thumb and scrunching it up like this. And once we flip it, you can see we have what looks like leaves. I'm going to get a clothespin wherever my clothespin is because I want to put two pieces. You could put 2, you can put 3, you can put 16 all the way around if you want. I like to put just a few. I don't want the green to overpower my flower. So again, corner to corner, you're just dragging. It's just the normal sunflower petal. I'll take this one, open it, and then I'm going to put this one in between this one. So I got 4 petals here. Now I'm doing this upside down. So this is the side that you want to see, because if you flip it over, then you see all these tattered edges. We don't want to see that with our flower. However, because I'm doing it upside down, I am going to flip it over, and the other side I'm going to do with the flower flat on the table. I'm going to put this right underneath the board, and you see the tattered edges, and do my zip tie around it. Just like that. So when I do flip the flower over, you're not going to see these tattered edges. Okay, pull it tight once you got your leaves all finished. and cut the zip tie tail off. And when you flip it over, you have pretty leaves. Now, a trick for keeping your leaves out flat, if you're using towards the inner center of the roll of poly burlap, is you can put a book and just put a book over on top of it overnight, and then when you wake up in the morning, the leaves will be completely flat, and it looks so pretty. So now I'm going to do right directly across from it, although it does look pretty just with these ones. Again, you can put your leaves wherever you want. I'm going to go directly across right here. Okay, but I'm going to do it on the table this time. So take my zip tie, put it through the hole. So my zip tie is like an L shape on the table. So there's my head, and it's through the hole, and it looks like an L. And I'm going to do the leaf the same way, the leaves. In a diamond, corner to corner. Flip this up. Now I press it down just to make sure that they're the same length. Close pin it. I'm going to take another one. So don't be scared to mix your materials that you're using for your wreaths, because I used 3 different materials here. I used what I had on hand, and sometimes it can be a good thing because look how fabulous this looks. So now my bad edges are facing the table, and I'm just going to pick this up, put it right on the board, and then do the zip tie around it. And we're done. Now, of course, you can add more. I still have a couple leaves, but I think I'm just going to leave it just like this. Cut your zip tie off. You can push the zip tie head so it's not sticking out, because sometimes the tail can be sharp. And there we go. A beautiful 3D. We'll fix our little, I probably squished it when it was upside down, but we'll fix our petals. But a beautiful 3D flower. Still fits between 2 doors, but wonderful dimension, and 3 different materials used. Poly burlap, fabric mesh, and normal real burlap. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I can't wait to see your zinnia flowers. And if you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to contact us at info@uniqueinthecreek.com. We have a fabulous team, and they get back to you pretty quickly. If you need to get a message to me, just put that that you need me to see it, and they will be sure to pop it in my folder. And make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, because that's where all the action's happening. I did do this live on Facebook right now, but it is going to be removed, and you will be able to find it over on YouTube, hopefully edited one day. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something. Bye.